"Take me, I will be yours tonight," said the girl, and Rancher took her away. The sun was just beginning to sink behind the distant hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink while the wind moved gently across the wide-open fields of the ranch. The rancher, a tall, strong man with sun-weathered skin and calloused hands, worked steadily, rounding up the last of the cattle for the day. His life had always been simple, built around routine, hard work, and the quiet rhythm of the land. Every day was a careful balance of responsibility and solitude, and he liked it that way. He was known in the nearby town as someone dependable, a man who could be counted on to help a neighbor or lend a hand when needed, but he preferred the company of his animals and the open sky to the busy streets and gossip of town life. The ranch had been in his family for generations, and he felt a deep connection to it. Every fence, every pasture, every stone seemed to hold memories of hard work, long days, and quiet victories. Tonight, however, something was different. There was a strange tension in the air, a feeling that his quiet world might be about to change. As he finished securing the last gate, a faint movement at the edge of the property caught his eye. He squinted against the setting sun, trying to make out what it was. At first, he thought it might be a stray animal, perhaps a lost dog or a wandering horse. But as he looked closer, he realized it was a person. A young woman, small and alone, was moving carefully through the tall grass, her posture tense, her steps hurried but cautious. She seemed to be running from something, though what that was he could not tell from this distance. The rancher felt a surge of concern. It was rare for anyone to come this far out without purpose. He knew the area could be dangerous at night, and strangers in these parts were often in trouble or trouble themselves. Still, something about the woman's determination, her courage, even in fear, drew him in. He set aside his work and walked toward her, calling out in a steady voice, "Hey! Are you all right?" The girl froze and looked toward him. Her eyes, wide and alert, reflected both fear and hope. She didn't speak at first. The wind whipped strands of her hair across her face, and her clothes were worn and dusty from travel. The rancher could see that she had been on the move for a long time, and that whatever she was running from, it had taken a toll on her. Finally she spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "Take me! I will be yours tonight!" The rancher stopped in his tracks, surprised by her words. They carried an urgency that made his heart tighten. He paused, trying to understand her meaning. It wasn't clear if she meant danger, trust, or something else entirely, but there was no mistaking the desperation behind them. She was asking for help, and she needed it immediately. He stepped closer, slowly, showing that he meant no harm. "What do you mean?" he asked gently. "Where are you coming from?" "Are you in trouble?" The girl took a shaky step forward. She looked him directly in the eyes, her gaze strong despite her obvious fear. "I have nowhere else to go. I can't stay where I was." "Please, I have no one. I need a safe place, tonight only." The rancher's mind raced. He had never faced a situation like this before. His instincts told him to be cautious, to ask questions, to protect his property and himself. Yet another part of him, a part he rarely acknowledged, felt the need to protect her, to make sure she was safe, no matter the cost. He could see it in her eyes. She wasn't asking lightly. She had made a decision that forced her to put her life in someone else's hands. And somehow, she had chosen him. "Come with me," he said finally, his voice calm but firm. "I can give you a place to rest. You'll be safe here tonight. But you need to trust me and follow my rules." Her relief was immediate, visible in the way her shoulders relaxed just a fraction and the tension in her hands eased. "Thank you," she whispered, almost inaudibly, but it carried more weight than words usually did. It was not just gratitude, it was trust, the kind of trust that was given when a person had no other choice. He led her to the barn, the place where he kept tools and stored feed, usually empty except for the occasional work animals. He made a small space for her, clearing some hay and setting a blanket over it. He offered her water and a small meal, and she accepted quietly, still scanning the surroundings as if danger could appear at any moment. As she ate, he watched her carefully. There was something remarkable about the way she moved, cautious but determined. Every glance, every small gesture seemed to say that she had endured more than anyone should have to, yet she hadn't lost her courage. He admired that, though he did not say so aloud. Words felt unnecessary in the face of shared silence, and both of them seemed to understand that tonight, actions mattered more than explanations. After she finished, she looked at him again, her eyes searching his face as though trying to read his thoughts. I'm sorry, she said softly. I know this is strange. I didn't have anywhere else to go. He shook his head. You don't need to apologize. You came here for safety. That's all that matters. I'll make sure you're safe. The wind outside grew colder, and the first stars appeared in the sky, twinkling faintly against the deepening blue. The rancher could hear the distant sounds of the cattle settling in for the night, the soft rustle of leaves, and the occasional cry of a bird returning to its nest. It was peaceful in its own way, yet the air carried a subtle tension, the sense that something unseen was watching. He knew the girl's fears were not unfounded, but he also knew that for tonight, this barn, this small space, was a refuge. Hours passed in quiet conversation, broken only by the occasional sound from outside. The girl told fragments of her story, not all at once, not in detail, but enough for him to understand that she had been running from danger, from people who had caused her harm, from situations that could have ruined her life if she had stayed. He listened, offering no judgment, only presence and reassurance. In turn, he shared small pieces of his life, not to boast, but to create a sense of trust and normalcy. He told her about the ranch, the animals, the seasons, and the work that filled his days. Slowly, the girl began to relax, feeling that for the first time in a long while, she was not alone. Night deepened, and the darkness seemed heavier, pressing against the walls of the barn. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying faint sounds that made both of them glance up. But inside, a quiet understanding had formed between them. The girl was safe for now, and the rancher had accepted the responsibility of protecting her. As he prepared to check the barn doors one last time, he glanced at her resting on the blanket. Her expression was weary but calm, a rare peace settling over her face. He realized then that this moment, brief as it might be, had changed something in both of them. She had trusted him completely, and in that trust he found a sense of purpose he had not known he was missing. He stepped outside to lock the barn securely, pausing to look at the horizon where the first hints of the moon were visible. The night was quiet, almost too quiet, but he did not fear what might come. For tonight, the girl was safe. For tonight, the rancher had kept his promise. And in that shared silence, there was a bond forming, fragile yet strong, between two people who had come together by chance, yet who now relied on each other in ways neither had anticipated. As he returned to the barn, he felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, whatever dangers or decisions lay ahead, he would face them. He would not abandon her, not when she had put her trust in him so completely. The night stretched on, long and full of quiet tension, but for the first time both felt that maybe, just maybe, things could be all right. The barn smelled of hay and earth, carrying a sense of life and labor. The stars outside twinkled faintly, casting a gentle glow through the small openings in the wood. And there, in that simple space, two lives had intersected in a way that neither could have predicted. The rancher understood that his quiet world had been disrupted. Yet in that disruption there was a spark of something meaningful, something that promised hope, safety, and perhaps a new beginning. Outside, the wind continued to move across the land, rustling the trees and carrying the faint sounds of the distant town. But inside, the barn held warmth, shelter, and trust. The girl closed her eyes, finally allowing herself a moment of rest, while the rancher kept watch, knowing that for tonight, he had done exactly what he was meant to do. And in the silence of the night, under the endless sky, both of them felt the unspoken understanding. This night was only the beginning. The first light of dawn crept slowly over the horizon, turning the sky into soft shades of pink and gold. The rancher was already awake, moving quietly through the barn, checking the animals and making sure everything was secure. The air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of dew on grass and earth. Even in the early morning, the ranch had a calm and steady rhythm, but tonight's events lingered in his mind. The girl was asleep on the blanket in the corner, and though she looked peaceful, he knew she was exhausted not just from travel but from fear, worry, and the weight of the choices she had made. He quietly stepped over to her, careful not to wake her. She had a fragile look, but there was also a quiet strength in her features, a resilience that had brought her here. Her breathing was steady, though he knew the relief she felt was temporary.
The dangers she had fled from were still out there. The rancher understood that he couldn't just give her shelter and hope for the best.
He needed to act, to plan, to make sure she could stay safe beyond the walls of this barn. When she finally woke, the sunlight streamed through the wooden slats of the barn, highlighting the dust motes in the air. Her eyes adjusted slowly to the light, and for a moment she looked around, confused but relieved to see the rancher. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and steady, offering reassurance. She managed a small, tired smile in return.
"I didn't sleep much,"
she admitted, rubbing her eyes.
"I kept thinking, someone might come. I know," he said quietly.
"That's why we need to think about what comes next."
"You can't stay here forever. It's safe for tonight, but there's more we need to do." Her gaze dropped to the blanket under her. She seemed reluctant to speak at first, as though opening up more might make her vulnerable again. But the rancher waited patiently. He had learned that trust could not be rushed, and that the girl needed to feel in control, even in a situation where so much had been taken from her. Finally she began, her voice soft but steady.
I was living in the town nearby.
They weren't safe anymore. I thought I could manage on my own, but it got worse.
People I trusted. They turned against me. I had no one. I didn't know where to go. That's why I came here. I didn't have a choice."
The rancher listened carefully, understanding more with every word. He did not interrupt, did not judge. He simply nodded, letting her feel that she was heard.
"You did the right thing by coming here,"
he said finally. "You were smart to find a safe place. You trusted your instincts." She looked at him, her eyes glistening slightly. "I didn't know who else to trust."
I just knew I needed to find someone who could help, and I thought, maybe you could."
The rancher's heart tightened. There was courage in her words, but also vulnerability, the kind that made him want to protect her even more.
"I will help you," he said simply. "But we need a plan. We can't just wait for danger to find you. You need to be somewhere safe, and we need to make sure you can get there without anyone following."
The girl nodded, her expression serious now.
I can't go back there, not yet. Not until things are different. But I don't know where to go. I don't know anyone I could trust besides you."
He considered this for a moment. The ranch was isolated, yes, but it wasn't a permanent solution. There were people in town who might ask questions, who might notice a young woman missing.
He needed to find a way to protect her until she could figure out her next steps. "We'll figure it out together," he said.
"For now, we need to stay quiet and keep moving. I know a few places that are safe, and we'll go there before anyone notices you're missing. You'll be able to rest, eat, and stay hidden until it's safe." Her relief was visible, and a faint smile appeared.
"Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here." The rancher nodded, turning his attention to preparing for the journey ahead.
"They couldn't stay in the barn any longer than necessary."
He fed the animals quickly, saddled the horses, and made sure they had water and supplies for the trip. The girl helped where she could, showing a surprising amount of composure given the fear she must have felt. The rancher admired her strength. She was frightened, yes, but she was also determined to take control of her situation. By mid-morning, everything was ready. The rancher approached her and offered her a seat on the horse behind him.
"Hold on tight," he said. "We're going to move carefully and quietly."
"It will be safer if we stay on the trails I know, away from the main roads." Climbing onto the horse with a quiet grace, As they began their journey, the wind moved across the open fields, carrying the fresh scent of grass and earth. The sun was higher now, warming their backs as they rode through the wide pastures and along the trails that wound through the hills. The girl stayed close to the rancher, trusting his guidance completely. As they traveled, she spoke more about her past, sharing details in small doses. She talked about her family, or rather the family she had lost or been separated from, the friendships that had failed her, and the choices she had made to survive. Each story carried weight, but she told it with a calm determination that made the rancher realize how resilient she truly was. "I didn't think I could make it this far," she admitted quietly.
I thought maybe I would be caught, or worse, but I kept moving.
"I had to keep moving." The rancher glanced at her, impressed. "You were brave," he said.
It's not easy to face danger alone, but you made it. And now you're here. You're safe for the moment, and we're going to make sure you stay that way."
For a while they rode in silence, the only sounds being the rhythmic steps of the horses and the occasional call of a bird in the distance. The rancher thought about the girl's words, about the courage it took to leave everything behind and put her life in the hands of a stranger.
He realized that this night, this journey was more than just a rescue.
It was a chance to show her that not everyone would let her down. As the day progressed, they faced small obstacles along the trail.
A fallen tree blocked part of the path, forcing them to dismount and lead the horses carefully over it. A narrow stream required them to navigate the slippery stones, testing their balance and focus.
Each challenge brought them closer together, building a quiet bond through shared effort and trust. At one point, the girl almost stumbled on a loose rock, and the rancher caught her quickly. "Careful!" he said, steadying her. She looked at him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and slight embarrassment. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he replied, giving her a reassuring smile. "We need to look out for each other." By late afternoon, they reached a small, secluded area with thick trees and a stream running through it. It was the perfect place to rest for a while, hidden from view and away from the main trails. The rancher set up a small camp, and they both took a moment to drink water, rest the horses, and eat a simple meal. As they rested, the rancher spoke gently. "I know it's hard to trust someone right away, especially after what you've been through, but I want you to know that I mean to keep you safe. Nothing will happen to you while I'm around." The girl looked at him, a small tear slipping down her cheek.
I believe you,"
she said softly. "I've had to be strong for so long, but with you—"
"I feel like I can finally breathe." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore. You're not alone tonight, or tomorrow, or the next day. We'll face this together." The sun began to dip again, casting long shadows through the trees. The girl leaned against a tree, closing her eyes for a moment, letting the peace of the secluded spot wash over her. The rancher kept watch, scanning the area for any sign of danger, but nothing came. For the first time in many days, both of them felt a sense of calm, a fragile safety in the quiet of nature. Even as darkness approached, there was a feeling that this night would be easier than the one before. The rancher knew that the journey was far from over, that challenges and dangers still lay ahead, but he also knew that they had made progress. They had a plan, a temporary safe place, and a growing trust that would carry them forward. And in that quiet forest, under the soft glow of the evening sky, the girl realized something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. She had trusted someone again, allowed herself to be protected, and found a moment of peace in a world that had been harsh and unforgiving. The rancher watched her carefully, noting the small signs of relief and trust, understanding that his role was more than just physical protection. He was offering her a chance to regain confidence, a chance to feel safe and valued again. And in doing so, he felt something stirring within himself, a recognition that helping her was not just an obligation but a privilege. Night fell slowly over the trees and the first stars appeared, tiny points of light in the darkening sky. The forest seemed calm, but the rancher remained alert. He knew that safety was never guaranteed and that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for tonight at least, they were together. And that was enough. As the girl drifted into a light sleep against the tree, the rancher settled nearby, keeping a quiet watch over the camp. The fire crackled softly, casting shadows on their faces, and the night air was cool and still.
They had made it this far, and though the road ahead was uncertain, there was a bond between them now, born of trust, courage, and shared struggle.
And in the quiet of the forest under the endless sky, both of them knew that this journey was only just beginning. But for the first time, the girl could imagine a future where she might be safe, where she might be free, and where she could finally begin to rebuild her life. The dawn broke slowly over the horizon, painting the sky in pale gold and soft pink. The forest around the small camp was quiet, except for the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind and the faint chirping of birds greeting the morning. The rancher stirred first, waking before the girl to make sure everything was in order. He moved with care, checking the horses and their surroundings.
The night had been peaceful, but he knew that peace could not last forever. Danger, he realized, was never far behind.
The girl stirred, her eyes fluttering open as the sunlight filtered through the trees. She stretched, letting out a small sigh. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of safety, however temporary. She looked at the rancher, gratitude and trust reflected in her eyes.
"Good morning," she said softly. "Morning," he replied, offering her a reassuring smile. "We need to get moving soon. Staying in one place too long isn't safe. We have to reach somewhere more secure before nightfall."
"I understand. I trust you."
"I'll follow your lead."
They prepared quickly, checking supplies and saddling the horses. The trail ahead was rough, filled with hills, streams, and dense woods. The rancher chose paths he knew well, hidden trails, old animal paths, and areas where travelers rarely went. He needed to keep them invisible, unseen by anyone who might be searching for her. As they moved through the forest, the girl stayed close behind him, gripping the saddle tightly, yet trusting his guidance. Each step, each careful movement reminded them both that danger could be anywhere. They were not just traveling across land, they were moving through a world filled with unknown threats. People who might not hesitate to harm her. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. Their journey was slow but careful. The rancher maintained a steady pace, balancing caution with the need to cover ground. Occasionally, he would glance back, checking the girl's position. She was alert, scanning their surroundings with sharp eyes, yet she showed signs of fatigue. Her hair was damp with sweat, her face flushed from exertion, but she did not complain. She had endured too much to falter now.
At midday, they came upon a narrow stream that cut across their path. The water flowed quickly over smooth stones, creating small ripples that reflected the sunlight.
The rancher stopped and dismounted, signaling for the girl to do the same.
"Careful," he said. "We need to cross slowly. The stones are slippery." She nodded, her jaw tight with concentration.
Step by step she followed him, testing each stone before placing her weight. The rancher stayed close, ready to catch her if she slipped. At one point her foot slipped, and he grabbed her hand quickly, steadying her.
"Thank you,"
she whispered, her cheeks turning slightly red. "You're welcome," he said calmly. "We need to watch each other.
That's how we stay safe."
Once across, they remounted and continued, moving deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller and closer together, casting long shadows over the trail. The air was cooler here, filled with the earthy scent of moss and fallen leaves. For a moment, it felt like the forest itself was shielding them, offering cover from prying eyes. But both knew it was only a temporary sanctuary. As the afternoon wore on, the girl began to open up more about her past. She spoke in short bursts, careful not to reveal too much, but enough for the rancher to understand the challenges she had faced. She told him about the people she had trusted, the ones who had betrayed her, and the moments when she had feared for her life. Each story was heavy with emotion, but she told it with quiet courage.
"I had no one," she said softly, her voice almost breaking. "Everyone I trusted turned away. I didn't know where to go. I thought maybe I'd have to face it alone. But then I found you."
The rancher nodded, understanding the depth of her words. You don't have to face it alone anymore.
I won't let anything happen to you. We'll get through this together.
For a while, they rode in silence, the rhythm of the horses' hooves on the trail matching the steady beat of their hearts. The rancher's mind was focused on strategy, thinking about the safest routes, possible dangers, and ways to keep them both hidden. The girl's presence reminded him that his responsibility was more than just guiding the horses, it was protecting her life. Suddenly, a sound from the distance made them both pause.
A branch snapped somewhere off the trail, sharp and sudden. The rancher stopped the horse immediately, signaling the girl to do the same.
Stay calm, he whispered. Keep your eyes open. They waited, hearts pounding.
Another sound came, a faint rustle, then silence. The rancher's instincts told him that someone or something had been nearby.
He couldn't be sure, but he knew better than to ignore the possibility. We need to move quickly, he said quietly, urging the horses forward with careful speed.
The girl's hand gripped his tightly. "Is it them?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly.
I don't know, he admitted, but we can't take chances. Stay close and follow my lead.
They navigated the forest carefully, taking hidden paths and avoiding open clearings. Every step required attention. Every glance behind them carried the weight of potential danger. Yet in the midst of tension, they relied on each other, finding a rhythm and trust that kept them moving forward. By late afternoon, the forest began to thin, and the trail led them to a wide meadow. The rancher slowed the horses, scanning the open space for any signs of danger. The meadow was beautiful, with wildflowers swaying in the breeze and the distant hills glowing in the warm sunlight. But beauty did not erase caution. He knew that open spaces could be dangerous too. They were easy to spot from a distance.
We'll rest here for a short time, he said. Just long enough to eat and drink. Then we'll move on before nightfall.
The girl dismounted and stretched her stiff legs. She was exhausted, but the relief of reaching a safer spot gave her a moment of comfort. She drank from the water bottle he handed her and ate a small portion of food. The rancher did the same, keeping a watchful eye on the surrounding area. As they rested, the girl spoke again, her voice quieter now.
I never thought I'd make it this far. I didn't know if anyone would help me. But you did. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, he said simply. I'm doing what's right.
That's all that matters. For a moment they sat in silence, the wind rustling the tall grass around them. The rancher felt a strange sense of connection forming, a bond created through trust, danger, and shared experience. The girl, too, felt it, a comfort in knowing someone was protecting her, guiding her, and relying on her in return. As the sun began to lower toward the horizon, the rancher prepared to move again. They couldn't linger too long in one place, no matter how safe it seemed. He gave the girl instructions for the trail ahead, showing her how to stay quiet and alert. She listened carefully, absorbing every word.
The journey continued, winding through hills and valleys, forests and streams. Each obstacle tested their skills and courage.
At one point, a fallen tree blocked their path, and they had to dismount to climb over it carefully. At another, a steep hill forced them to navigate slowly, making sure the horses did not lose footing.
Through it all, they relied on each other, their trust growing stronger with every challenge. As night approached, the rancher spotted a secluded grove up ahead, a hidden place where they could set up a temporary camp safely out of sight.
He led the horses there, guiding the girl carefully through the shadows. Once settled, they made a small fire and prepared for the night. The girl leaned against a tree, exhausted but relieved, while the rancher kept watch, alert for any signs of danger. The night was quiet, but tension lingered in the air. The girl spoke softly, almost to herself. I never thought I'd feel safe again. I've been running for so long, but now, with you, I feel like I can finally rest. The rancher nodded, understanding the significance of her words.
You can rest tonight. Tomorrow we'll continue. But for now, you're safe.
They shared a small meal, the fire crackling softly in the darkness. The girl's eyes grew heavy and she finally allowed herself to close them, trusting the rancher to watch over her. He stayed alert, scanning the area, knowing that safety was never permanent, but feeling a quiet satisfaction in keeping her alive, protecting her, and guiding her through danger. The night stretched on, filled with the sounds of the forest and the steady rhythm of the fire. Both the rancher and the girl were aware that their journey was far from over, but the bond they had formed gave them strength. They were no longer two strangers thrown together by circumstance. They were partners in survival, relying on each other in ways that words could not fully capture. And as the stars shone above, they both knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but together they could face it. The night was not the end. It was only another step in a journey that would test their courage, their trust, and their resilience. The first light of dawn painted the horizon in soft shades of gold and lavender. The forest around the hidden grove was quiet, with only the sounds of birds waking and the gentle rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. The rancher stirred first, as always, moving silently to check the horses in the perimeter of their temporary camp. The girl was still asleep, her head resting against a tree, her breathing steady but weary. Last night had been long, filled with tension and cautious moments, but for now she was safe. The rancher approached quietly, careful not to wake her. He studied her face for a moment, noting the lines of exhaustion and the faint signs of relief that had replaced the tension she carried for so long. It was clear she had been through more than anyone should endure, yet she had survived, and that survival had brought her to this point, with him. When she finally woke, the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting soft shadows over the grove. She stretched, rubbing her eyes, and then looked at the rancher with a quiet, grateful expression. "Morning," she said softly, her voice still carrying traces of sleep.
"Morning,"
he replied, offering her a small smile.
"We need to keep moving."
"Staying here too long isn't safe, but don't worry. We'll reach a place today where you can finally rest for longer, somewhere hidden and secure."
Her face brightened slightly at his words, and she nodded. "I trust you," she said.
"I know you'll keep me safe."
The rancher felt a pang of emotion at her words.
Trust was fragile, especially for someone who had experienced so much betrayal. That she could place her trust in him completely was a responsibility he did not take lightly.
He prepared the horses, checking saddles, reins, and supplies. They needed to move efficiently, and the girl helped where she could, showing determination and courage even in her exhaustion. As they began their journey, the rancher guided them along a series of hidden trails, winding through hills and dense forests. The forest canopy provided cover from any prying eyes, and the uneven terrain made it unlikely anyone could follow without being noticed. Every step required focus, and the rancher moved carefully, constantly scanning the surroundings for any sign of threat. The girl stayed close, her hands gripping the saddle tightly, but her posture relaxed slightly. She had begun to understand the rancher's methods and instincts, and she trusted his guidance completely. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of security, a feeling she had almost forgotten existed. By mid-morning, they reached a small creek, its clear water rushing over smooth stones. The rancher slowed, signaling the girl to dismount and lead the horses across carefully. The stones were slippery, and the current was stronger than it appeared. He stayed close, steadying her as she navigated each step. "Careful," he said gently. "We're almost across." Once they reached the other side, the girl paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here."
"I'm doing what's right. That's all that matters."
They continued through the forest, gradually moving toward higher ground. The rancher knew of a secluded valley several miles ahead, a place few people ever visited. It was a natural sanctuary, hidden by cliffs, thick trees, and a small river running through it. He planned to take them there, knowing that once they arrived, the girl could rest and regain her strength without fear of being discovered. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, they faced obstacles along the way. Fallen trees blocked their path. Steep hills tested their endurance, and narrow trails required careful navigation. Each challenge strengthened their bond as they relied on each other for guidance and support. The girl's courage and determination impressed the rancher, and he admired the way she adapted to the demands of the journey, never faltering even when tired. At one point, a distant noise made them pause. a low sound, like someone walking through the brush. The rancher immediately guided the girl to a nearby tree, signaling her to stay quiet. They watched and waited, hearts pounding. After a tense few minutes, it became clear that the noise had been caused by a deer moving through the underbrush. Both let out quiet breaths, relieved but reminded that danger could be near at any time. By late afternoon, they reached the entrance to the hidden valley. The rancher scanned the area carefully, ensuring that no one could see them. Once satisfied, he led the horses down the gentle slope and into the valley. The girl looked around in awe. The valley was beautiful, filled with green meadows, flowering shrubs, and tall trees providing shade. A small river wound through the center, its water sparkling in the late afternoon sun. It was a perfect sanctuary, hidden from the world above. They set up a small camp near the riverbank. The rancher gathered firewood while the girl helped organize supplies. There was a quiet rhythm to their work, a sense of calm that had been missing from both of their lives for far too long. For the first time in days, the girl felt she could finally relax. She sat by the river, letting the sound of flowing water soothe her. The rancher joined her, offering a small meal he had prepared.
They ate in companionable silence, the tension of the journey gradually easing. The girl looked at him, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and a newfound sense of hope. "I feel safe here," she said softly. "I can finally breathe." "You've been through so much, and you've shown incredible courage. This is your chance to rest and regain your strength."
As the evening approached, the rancher built a fire, and they sat together, watching the flames dance. The girl's exhaustion finally caught up with her, and she leaned back against a tree, letting the warmth of the fire and the peaceful surroundings wash over her. The rancher kept watch, alert but calm, knowing that for the first time in a long while, they were truly safe. Night fell, and the stars emerged, sparkling in the clear sky above. The rancher felt a sense of satisfaction and relief. They had overcome obstacles, navigated dangers, and reached a place where the girl could finally rest without fear. The bond between them had grown stronger through shared struggle, trust, and courage. The girl looked at him, a small smile on her lips.
"Thank you for everything," she said quietly. "I don't think I could have made it here without you. I'm glad you're safe. That's enough for me."
For the next few days, they stayed in the valley. The girl regained her strength, eating well, sleeping deeply, and slowly letting go of the fear that had consumed her. The rancher remained vigilant, teaching her small survival skills and sharing stories of the land. They spoke little, but their bond grew stronger with each passing day, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. As they explored the valley, the girl began to feel a sense of freedom she had not known for years. She walked along the river, felt the grass beneath her feet, and listened to the wind through the trees. The valley became more than a hiding place. It became a space of healing, a place where she could begin to rebuild her life. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, the rancher and the girl sat together by the river. The journey had been long and difficult, but they had made it. The girl looked at him, gratitude and something deeper in her eyes. "I know this isn't the end," she said softly, "but for the first time, I feel like I can face whatever comes next." "You can," he said, his voice calm and reassuring.
"You're stronger than you know, and you're not alone anymore. We'll face it together."
The girl smiled, leaning back and watching the sky darken. The stars reflected in the river, creating a scene of quiet beauty and peace. She felt a sense of hope she had not experienced in years. A belief that life could be safe, that she could trust someone, and that she could finally begin to heal. The rancher looked out over the valley, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had protected her, guided her, and helped her find safety. But more than that, he had witnessed her courage, her resilience, and her strength. He knew that the journey had changed both of them. They were no longer strangers brought together by circumstance. They were allies, companions, and perhaps something more, bound by trust and shared experience. As the night deepened, they sat in silence, listening to the river and the sounds of the valley. There was a sense of finality in their journey so far, a resolution that, For now, they were safe. The girl closed her eyes, finally allowing herself to rest fully while the rancher kept watch, alert but calm. The journey was not over, but this chapter had ended, and both could finally breathe. The stars shone brightly overhead, a reminder of the vast world beyond the valley and the possibilities that lay ahead. For the first time in a long time, the girl felt hope. She had been rescued from danger, guided through uncertainty, and shown that trust and courage could create safety. She had found someone who would stand by her, and in that she found a new beginning. The rancher watched the fire, feeling a quiet contentment. He had kept his promise, and in doing so he had witnessed the beginning of something extraordinary. The girl was safe, she was strong, and she had hope again. And in the quiet of the night under the endless sky, both knew that life would continue, and they would face it together with trust, courage, and a bond forged in the trials they had endured. The night passed peacefully, and by morning the valley was bathed in soft light. The girl woke refreshed, the weight of fear lifted from her shoulders. She looked at the rancher, a smile on her face, and knew that while the journey had been difficult, it had led her to safety, trust, and a new chapter in her life. And so, in the quiet beauty of the valley, under the endless sky and beside the flowing river, two lives intertwined, forever changed by a journey of courage, trust, and hope. The girl had found safety, and the rancher had found a deeper purpose. Together, they faced a future full of possibilities, knowing that the trials of the past had forged a bond that would carry them forward no matter what challenges lay ahead.